Hey everyone! Today we're diving into one of the most interesting migrations in African history, the Bantu migration. This massive movement of people reshaped the continent in ways that are still visible today. But how did it all happen, and what made the Bantu people spread across such a vast region? The Bantu people originally lived in what is now southern West Africa, in regions around the Niger River. Places like modern-day Nigeria, Cameroon, and Gabon. They were primarily farmers, growing crops such as millet, sorghum, rice and beans, and raising livestock like goats, sheep and cattle. But they weren't just skilled in farming, they were also experts in ironworking, crafting tools and weapons that gave them an edge over other groups they encountered. This ability to create strong metal tools helped them farm more effectively and protect their communities. Over time, the Bantu people began expanding, moving into Central Africa and beyond. This wasn't a sudden migration. It was a slow process that took hundreds of years, beginning around 2000 BCE, and continuing until roughly 1500 CE. As they traveled, they shared their knowledge of farming, iron smelting, and pottery making with the local people they met. In return, they learned new skills from indigenous groups, such as advanced fishing techniques and the cultivation of certain crops suited to different climates. So why did they leave their homeland in the first place? Historians believe there were many reasons. One major factor was population growth. As their communities got larger, they needed more land and resources to sustain themselves. Some areas became overcrowded, making it harder to find good farmland. Environmental changes also played a role. Some regions may have become less fertile, forcing them to seek better lands elsewhere. There were also conflicts between different groups over land and resources, leading some Bantu communities to migrate in search of peace and stability. And of course, human curiosity and the desire for a better life may have driven some to explore new territories. As they spread, the Bantu people settled in most of Africa south of a line stretching from Nigeria to Kenya, except for places like South Africa and the Namibian desert. They established settlements along the East African coast, which later became the Swahili Coast. This coastal region would go on to become an important trade hub, where African and Arab cultures mixed as merchants from the Middle East arrived to do business. The migration didn't happen all at once. It took place in multiple waves. First, small groups moved into Central and East Africa. Later, during the first millennium BCE, a second wave pushed further south. By the first millennium CE, the Bantu had reached areas like Zimbabwe, Botswana, Mozambique, and South Africa. While early scholars believed the migration was slow and gradual, recent research suggests it may have been much faster, with large numbers of people moving at once rather than small groups trickling down over time. Wherever they went, the Bantu left a lasting impact. Their language spread so widely that today, around 500 African languages trace their roots back to the original Bantu language. They introduced new farming techniques and iron tools, which made agriculture more productive. They also brought new crops, like bananas and yams, which helped increase food supply in many regions. As their villages grew, some areas developed strong leadership structures, leading to the formation of organized societies and even early kingdoms. However, not everyone welcomed the Bantu migration. Some indigenous groups resisted and chose to retreat to more remote areas. The San people, for example, moved deeper into the Kalahari Desert, while the Pygmies found refuge in the dense rainforests of Central Africa. The Bantu migration wasn't just about people moving from one place to another. It was a massive shift in technology, culture, and language that shaped the history of Africa. Even today, the influence of the Bantu people can be seen in languages, traditions, and farming techniques across the continent. Their migration remains one of the most significant events in African history, and its effects are still felt centuries later.